It's only when something happens that it becomes realized on hindsight that oh, this is so important. So one thing to consider first and foremost is business continuity plan. In terms of business continuity plan, first thing that one should always consider is what is the recovery plan. So you should think about disasters, like for example COVID that we recently faced. When we have such situation, how do we account for that? If people cannot go on site, how do we work around that? So all these plans must already be evaluated. Um, Freezers break down. So if you have a freezer that breaks down in the middle of night, what will you do now? And do you have a backup freezer? So the next thing that is quite important is about people. Do you have people who is trained enough to react to this kind of environment? Do you have are those people trained in those kind of backup policies, backup SOPs that you have already come up with, but they are not familiar or they don't really know how to react to this kind of business continuity plan? So that's something to think about. The other next thing is equipment maintenance. I think day to day, having a working equipment is kind of assume that its equipment works well. But what if it fails? And how can we make sure that the equipment lifespan is well maintained? It's by performing maintenance. So you should also always consider preventive maintenance yearly or doing checks like calibrations. Is your freezer really at negative 80 degrees Celsius from year to year, or do you want to do checks after every 2 to 3 years to ensure that it's calibrated and there's no deviation in the temperature? So that's something to consider. The third topic I think is something maybe sometimes some people is a luxury, but I think it's quite important. Is about backup freezers. Okay, for us, what we will do is you can assume that based on your scale of a facility, you consider for X amount of freezers, I will have one backup freezers. The importance of this is that what if there's a freezer that breaks down now? How would you transfer your samples without letting them be compromised in a certain way? For a lot of labs that I've been to, usually then we'll struggle, we'll start to take the sample, put into freezer A and then some to freezer B. That's a problem because eventually when you need the samples, most people wouldn't really remember which freezer they have placed. So then you will spend a lot of time, effort, finding those samples. So sometimes considering a backup freezer is actually very critical. The last one is temperature monitoring system. For us, one of the things that we value greatly is temperature monitoring system. What it means is that you have an alert system that if your freezer is out of a temperature range, whether is it due to opening the freezer or the freezer breakdown, then it will call or contact any of your staff. So that's very important because it's after using for freezers for 8-9 years, there will bound to be one of them that will fail eventually. And how do you save the samples from those freezers? So in my opinion, I think temperature monitoring is one of the key things because once you have a way to alert that temperature is out, people can then go in and react accordingly and move the sample to a backup freezer. Okay. The second thing I want to talk about is sample inventory management. It's something quite simple. I would say for a lot of labs that I've been in, due to budget or ease of it, you will want to use, or a lot of people will use Excel to manage the inventory system. The drawbacks about this, of course, is that it's very easy for someone to go there and update the Excel and then cause a shift in the row or column that causes the data to be popped off. So it's something that maybe even is a 1% chance, but the impact can be very great. So that's the problem. Of course, there are still ways to manage it by setting up certain limitations and rules in Excel that require someone to be expertise in it. Of course, the drawback about Excel is that there will be no audit trail. So who added what in the Excel, you won't have that form of trail. And that can be a problem if you're storing sometimes clinical trial samples, because then it's not really validated. And because of all this, if people start to lose confidence in a centralized inventory system that it's not always accurate, people will start having my own inventory in my own PC, which is very common. And that's a big problem because then centralized inventory is not updated, and then that means everything is fragmented pieces. So there's a lot of problems that can surface just from using Excel. And it leads to eventually missing link between the original samples information or experimental data. They are not linked together, and well, it's quite common that in the market field that you have enough budget, you should start considering a very basic established sample inventory system that will have, if there's 21 CFR high level compliant, that will give you audit trail. So and what it means is that if you delete a sample today, it seems to be disappeared from the system, but in the history you can still find it, and it's always there. It will also tell you who deleted it at what time. So it's important to have this system. Slide. Okay. One of the common challenges I also see is about labeling of samples. So most commonly, because of time, budget, and setup, people will use Marco to label your samples, which is totally understandable. Or some labs where it's a bit more established, they will actually print sample ID on labels and paste it on their samples. There are, of course, those are good systems, but of course there are still drawbacks where sometimes the labels that you use, they are not suitable for low temperature. So it probably works for refrigerated, which is fine, but if you go to -80 or different regions of temperature, the sticker will not stick and will start falling. And you will usually realize it maybe years after you have stored the samples that can start to become an issue. So it will be good to consider systems that allows that is this should definitely be resistant to low temperature. That's a must, and I think it's quite common to find it in a lot of brands. Some other systems that you can also find is that if you go for direct tube labeling system, for example, in this case, you can put your tube in the machine and then it will print the label directly on your sample. For this kind of solutions, they can be amenable to ethanol, methanol, and DMSO resistant. And some of those also allows you to print text or barcodes on the tube itself. So that's consider. The other thing about this is it's a continuation from sample labeling, but it will be a lot more useful for people who are doing more high throughput or a lot more samples that they are managing. Which means, for example, what you can see is that the sample label is already pre-printed on the tube that you purchase. Okay, and they can come in many forms. They can come in 1D barcode, which is what you typically see day to day. The 2D barcode, which is like the QR kind of code at the base of the tube, or tri-coded tubes, which is a combination of text, 1D barcode, and 2D barcode. So I'll just do a quick mention that the purpose of the 2D barcode at the bottom, where you can see in the left slides, are meant to put on a scanner where you can immediately scan all the 96 samples at one shot. So you don't need to take the samples one by one and scan with a barcode scanner to register the ID of the tube ID. So linkage to the prior slide is, as I said, if you're doing a lot of sample throughput, you may want to consider using certain automations to aid yourself. You can use handheld decapper, which comes in 8 channel, or 96 channel. That means if you put in the whole rack, it will decap and cap the whole rack at one go within 15 seconds, I would say. And then, as you can see from the bottom right, is also the barcode scanner that you can just place your rack on top, and then you read all the sample ID with the sample position. And if you can churn out to maybe Excel, or you can link directly to your LIMS system. Okay, I believe this is my second last slide. So I would just like to also quickly mention that even sampling handling itself is very critical. When people take the samples from the box and then they check the ID and things like that, it should always be close to the refrigerant of storage. So if it's 4 degrees, it's ice pack. If it's minus 20, minus degrees, dry ice accordingly. If people are doing LN2, that's a problem that people usually can't solve. They will usually either place it on dry ice because just the limitations of the facilities. For us, what we do is we use either something called cryopod or cryocut. So basically, it means that at the extreme right, it's just a device that holds the LN2 outside of the surface, and then you put your box within it. So it will constantly keep your samples in equilibrium temperature without exposure to LN2. So that's one of the ways that people can consider handling LN2 samples. And the cryopod has an advantage where it can retain this temperature for about 2.5 to 3 hours if you don't open the lid. Sometimes what we have used for cell therapy is basically we will put the samples in the cryopod, we will transport to another building, okay, ensuring that the temperature does not fluctuate at all, and then placing it on one of the patient's lab, and then maybe half an hour later, the research assistant is free, they'll come in and process the sample. But of course, the box and samples are still, at the LN2 temperature. The last two things to mention is, of course, it will be good to use, instead of using hand to pick out the sample, as you can see from the image, it will be good to use or purchase tools that you can hold samples so that you don't introduce heat to the samples directly, and it will be ideal to touch it at the first point. The last thing I would like to mention is that in the best case scenario, for any tools, equipment, or methods, it will be important or good to validate that it's working as it is. So, it's like if you have a cryopod kind of solution, does it really keep the temperature at LN2? So it'd be good to do a validation. And of course, the last point will be, for every staff that is handling all this, are they properly trained in all the activities that they are supposed to carry out? And some of them probably are just backups for certain activity. So it'd be good to test their competency every year to document that they have been, they are still up to standard, or maybe need a refresher for the handling. Okay, so this is actually my last slide. So I'll just go back to the first slide where I talk about purchasing fridge or freezer from household. So household fridge and freezers, well, they are good. The uniformity in the fridge is not there. So it can be 4 degrees at one point, but at another point it can be 6 degrees. So it's not as uniform, but it works. The lack of temperature precision and sensitivity is also there. It's not meant to be very precise in the temperature and the range, or it's not also meant to be very stable. So maybe after 2 years of usage, instead of 4 degrees, it's actually probably 6 degrees, 7 degrees. You wouldn't know. It differs from model to model, brand to brand. That's just how it is. And most often than not, most fridge and freezers have an auto defrosting cycle. That means, every 6 or 12 hours, the temperature will actually rise a bit so that the ice will thaw. And that basically causes your sample to also be warmer than intended. So that's one of the other reasons. The last reason is purely just because it's not meant to fit in like temperature monitoring system. So it does not have things like dry contact, has special functions that allows you to monitor your users. And that's my last slide. So thank you very much. If anyone is interested to look at the cryogenic storage solution, you can also scan the QR code and give the link to our website. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kong. So now in the next series, we move to our next session. It is session 4A, that is Rapid Insights, Short Research Talks. So chairperson for this session are Dr. Madhura Kulkarni, Dr. Tulika Prasad, and Dr. Dharmendra Kumar. So I request Dr. Madhura, Dr. Tulika, and Dr. Dharmendra to kindly come on dais and chair the session. A brief introduction about our chair session persons. Dr. Madhura Kulkarni is a distinguished senior scientist and DBT Ramalingam Fellow at the Center of Translational Cancer Research, a joint initiative by ISSCR, Pune and PCCF, University of Maryland College Park. She leads cutting-edge research on molecular profiling of infiltrating ductal carcinoma, aiming to discover novel prognostic and therapeutic targets. She of FFPE breast tissue biobank at CTCR PCCM, where she also initiated a frozen tissue biobank, recognized with prestigious Ramalinga Swami Fellowship by DBT India. So she is now dedicated. She is also a dedicated early career member of European Association for Cancer Research and an individual member of the Indian Cancer Genome Atlas and a member of the Indian Association of Cancer Research. Brief introduction of Dr. Tulika Prasad. Ma'am is not joined. She won't be joining because she has a talk over there in the panel session. So now the brief introduction about our chairperson, the Dr. Dharmendra Kumar. He is a senior scientist at ICAR Center Institute for Research on the Fellows, HISAR. Okay. So now we can move to our session.
Thank you for having me here as a chair and a very nice introduction. So let's get started with our session. Our first speaker is Kaumudi Bhave, and I had a pleasure to get introduced to her just about 2-3 hours ago, and I'm impressed with her background and what she brings in to the conference. So let's read her intro first, and then I'll talk about what I know about her. So Kaumudi Bhave, she's a founder of YOM Consulting Services, a firm specializing in personalized medicine and innovative treatment strategies for breast cancer. She has been instrumental in advancing personalized medicine approaches, tailoring treatments to individual patient profiles to enhance efficacy and minimize side effects. Dr. Bhave has also collaborated with Dr. Dharmendra Kumar Yadav, a cancer health advisor at BIF, everybody knows Dr. Virendra here, to discuss and promote innovative breast cancer treatment methodologies. Their joint efforts aim to disseminate knowledge and support for breast cancer patients, emphasizing the importance of personalized care and improving treatment outcomes. So, as the introduction says, Dr. Kaumudi brings in the patient angle to biobanking, and it is quite important for all of us to be having a patient angle as a reference point all along as we are catering to the future treatments to the patients. So, Dr. Kaumudi, please go on, guys.
Thank you, Dr. Madhura, for that kind introduction. Um, Thank you, Dr. Madhura, for that kind introduction, and thank you, everyone here, for spending some time to think about this from the patient angle. So, I have only 3 slides today because of the short time that's allocated. I don't want to hold you too long, but my main aim is to get us thinking about novel ways in which biobanking can happen in the future. So, I have here basically we all know what exactly biobanking is. However, if you're thinking about it from a specific angle of cancer research, what do you need? So we all know that it's a repository. It stores biological samples. But however, in the context of a specific research area or focus, the way those samples are stored and what we are expecting from that sort of storage mechanism is highly important and something to really think about. So, what are the functionalities of the biobank specific to cancer research? The biobanks should be such that it facilitates biomarker discovery and validation, and it should provide researchers with high quality, well annotated biospecimens. Let's see the slide here. I'm going to need help to progress to the next slide on this. So the key goals now specific to cancer are to be able to integrate the various omics technologies. And we had some excellent talks today that looked at this, especially from the point of view of academic centers and research centers, right? There are already protocols in place for integrating various omics technologies that are happening within any given academic center. And this is probably true throughout the world, no matter which country you go in. The academic institute or medical institute hosts the biobank, which holds the tissue, and everything is integrated there itself. Now, we heard from multiple countries, representatives, how to best foster international collaboration, data sharing, etc. People mentioned policies such as HIPAA in the US and other policies across the world, right? Now, the workflow should be aimed at improving cancer diagnosis, treatment. So, yeah, just bring it to the last slide. Okay. Now I want to focus mainly on this particular slide. And are any of those mics working? Because I need a moment to. No, I want it to. That's fine. I'll just use this. Okay. So let's think about everything we know about biobanks and think about a scenario where the patient, I have your patient, but let's actually think about the patient and the patient's family and caregivers at the center of this. So what I saw today, and what I've seen in my career so far, is that all of these, everybody wants to do this, integrating omics technologies and doing the best for patients. But I have rarely seen a schematic where the patient is at the center making the decisions throughout the process, right? From the beginning to the end of the treatment cycle, pre-diagnosis and post. Now, all of you are experts, much more than me in this field. So you might say, how is that practically possible? But given my specific journey, I have come across these groups of patients and caregivers that are highly informed, that are keeping up with the latest literature, and they want to participate in their entire treatment journey. Also, even though the top class research is happening at all the academic institutes in the world, sometimes there are cases where, especially in advanced cancers, where the patients themselves might decide to hop from one institute to another. Okay, in that case, there is loss of data, there is loss of sample ability to collaborate completely. Even though those institutes may exist in the same country, for example, at times. So, what could be one possible solution for something like this? If there are patients and families with resources, with education, willing to put in the funds and participate in the decision making process, we identify such groups, and the biobanks don't have to be huge, because if the biobanks are small relatively but focused on research questions, around research questions, then that could be a grounds for more meaningful research in those specific areas. I'm going to give you a moment to just kind of pause and think about scenarios where this could be possible in your own experience. We'll take a moment of silence, and then I'm going to state an example that I've seen firsthand. Okay? If anyone wants to share, you can raise your hands, and after I'm done, if there's time permitting, we can have that discussion, or maybe offline even. But this talk is to spark those ideas. All right. In my experience, I'm going to talk about a specific group of patients. These are patients that have faced pancreatic cancer, okay? And they are post-surgery. So they are in what is called an NED, no evidence of disease state. Okay? They have had the cancer detected early, but they constantly have the fear of recurrence, because it's known in pancreatic cancer that while they may be looking cancer free for a while, the cancer tends to come back. Now, if these patients have the resources and want to stay on top of their disease management, how do they go about doing so? Their initial biopsy sample and their tissue resection samples are stored at the medical facility where they had their treatment. But post-surgery, they are knowledgeable and interested in the latest and greatest diagnostics technologies that are coming out there. And there are multiple companies developing diagnostics, or trying to develop diagnostics in this space, and working off of human biological fluids, making it less invasive, but trying for techniques that can push the cutting edge forward. So not just circulating tumor cells or cell-free DNA, ctDNA, but even more sort of metabolomic, other kind of markers that they are validating, and they are obtaining these research-only use cases for their diagnostics, so that observational trials can be created and patients can enroll themselves in those, and data can be collected. So right now in the field, this is happening not in a very organized manner. It's happening because there are multiple stakeholders, and each of them are kind of leading these efforts in their own realm. And in order to truly harmonize, so that everyone's interests can in creating a win-win situation for everyone involved, the one common factor is that everyone wants to do good for the patients. So how do we ensure this? Is to involve the patients. And in fact, not just involve them, but if we have patient-led biobank setup, we can start with people who have the resources and want to do this. It starts with education also, because many patients are not even educated about all the different kinds of diagnostics, testing, treatment approaches, everything that can happen once they have the diagnosis. So these two factors, educating the population and these small groups of leading patient advocates and agencies that can start these small observational trials with a small biobank associated with it. This is a new paradigm shift model that I just wanted to introduce here as a brainstorming for all of us. And hopefully this can become a reality in the future. And I want to be involved in this. I feel like India has a really big role to play in something like this for multiple reasons, which I won't go into in the interest of time, but maybe we can have those discussions offline. And so thank you everyone for your time.
I'd like to call next speaker, Dr. Pradeep Kumar. Dr. Pradeep Kumar is a senior scientist at CARB Hisar. With expertise in reproductive biotechnology, he has developed several technologies like artificial gun, digital AV for the semen collection and spermoscope for visualization of spermatozoa. And for that, ICR has certified this technology as a product. Dr. Kumar has received several awards, including the Best Presentation Award from SAPI 2023. He trained in the Tulika Book and India Book for the Pharmacology and also received prestigious team award from the ICR. His ongoing research including a project on the semen quality biomarker and sperm sequestration in buffalo. So he has member of the various prestigious society and currently he is working on the semen biology. So with this much of introduction, I'm inviting Dr. Pradeep Kumar for presentation.
Thank you, Dr. Dharmendra, for nice introduction, and also good afternoon to all. So in this talk, I will discuss with you about the sperm vitrification. As you all know about the embryo oocyte vitrification, in which directly the embryo is plunged into liquid nitrogen, but it required very high quantity of the cryoprotectants. Here it is different from the embryo or the oocyte vitrification. Here we are not using the permeable cryoprotectant for this vitrification. So this vitrification, all of you know, directly turn liquid into solid without the formation of the ice crystal. Generally, during the cryopreservation, snow or conventional cryopreservation, ice crystal is formed. But for the first time, Isachenko laboratory successfully established the human spermatozoa without permeable cryoprotectant in 2022. Thereafter, the laboratory initially they developed the technology in the thin films or in droplet, but it is exposed to the liquid nitrogen, so it also having the chances to contamination of the spermatozoa. Then they developed the aseptic methods of sperm vitrification, and they called it the aseptic technology of vitrification. And for this, they developed the capillary methods and straw methods of sperm vitrification. And they produced the world's first birth of 2 babies after ICSI during this vitrified spermatozoa. So we have chance to work with him, and we when we visit working with him, then we found this some research gap. They have not used some antioxidant for the vitrification, so we decided to use. They have not seen the ultra-structure of the vitrified spermatozoa in comparison to the conventional cryopreserved spermatozoa. Through transmission electron microscopy and through alteration of the protein in vitrification and normal sperm, proteomic alteration. So therefore, our objective was to investigate the effect of mitochondrial targeted antioxidant and permeable cryoprotected glycerol on ameliorating the spermatozoa vitrification process. And second objective was to determine the ultra-structure changes during the vitrification process using transmission electron microscopy. And last one was to determine the alteration in the functional protein after the vitrification process. For this, we selected the semen of the 20 healthy men and we processed for the swim up, and after swim up, we diluted with the sucrose 0.5 m. That's all. Then we make a 7 alicot. In first alicot, we add nothing. It is called basal media, and second one, second and third 0.02 and 0.2 micromole mitocube, and we want to see whether the glycerol is beneficial or harmful. So we also make an experiment by adding the glycerol at 1%, 4%, 6%. And lastly, we make combination after seeing the beneficial effects. And this is the process. This is the process how vitrification is done. In capillary, we suck the semen, diluted semen in this capillary. Then we fill the straw and just plunge into the liquid nitrogen. After 24 hours, we cut the straw, remove this capillary, and we warm. Here in cryopreservation, we call thawing, but in the vitrification, it is called warming. So we warm the vitrified sperm in the warm solutions and evaluated these parameters to know which one is the better for these sperm vitrifications. So we evaluated the motility, viability, acrosome integrity, mitochondrial membrane potential, DNA fragmentation, cell rocks degradation, transmission electron microscopy, and level 3 quantitative proteomic analysis of the vitrified spermatozoa. And we found that the sperm motility and progressive sperm motility in the mitocube group and the glycerol group was similar, almost similar at 0.02 micromole mitocube and this 1% glycerol. But when glycerol concentration is increasing, motility is reducing. But it is lesser than the fresh one because it is vitrified. Similarly, similar trend was observed in the progressive sperm motility. And we found that viability is also better in the 0.02 micromole mitocube and 1% glycerol in compared to other groups. And in the acrosome also it is similar in the 0.02 micromole and 1% glycerol. So from this experiment, it looks that glycerol and mitocube are better for the vitrification. But when check the mitochondrial membrane potential, we found that only 0.02 micromole mitocube vitrified group is better than other all groups. Similarly, DNA damage was less in the 0.02 micromole mitocube group than others. And ATP production was higher after this 0.02 micromole groups. So from this experiment, now it looks that this glycerol is even 1% glycerol is not beneficial for the vitrification of the spermatozoa. Then we analyze the sperm protein altered during the vitrification. We through proteomic analysis we identify 1,759 proteins, and we through this diagram we found that all the treatment groups and having the same pattern of the histogram, which indicate the robustness of the MS data. Then we in heat map you can see this is the control sample, means it is fresh one, have same pattern, and treatment sample have same pattern of the different shades of green, and the fresh sample it looks red, means there is a difference in the fresh and vitrified spermatozoa. Similarly, the principal component analysis, you see the vitrified sperm has a one group and the fresh one is this different group, means there is just something changed during the vitrification. In this volcano graph, you can see the basal media, means there is no, we have not added anything, neither glycerol, neither mitocube, having 57 down-regulated protein. In the mitocube, only 52. And the glycerol group, you can see 71, 78 protein are altered. And the mitocube and glycerol 69. So from this graph, it shows that during the vitrification, use of the glycerol is detrimental for the protein. Similarly, you can see the altered protein in the mitocube is only 25, in the glycerol it is 54, and mitoglycerol 43. So it also again indicates that there is a more alteration in the protein when we use the glycerol during the vitrification process. Also, you can see in this in basal media, active proteins are altered in mitocube group only 8, and mitocoglycerol 24, and in glycerol 32. Again, it is high among all the treatment groups. So it indicates this glycerol is not required and it is harmful during the vitrification of the spermatozoa. And we also analyze some major protein, actin protein, which is actin and tubulin is responsible for sperm motility. Motility is not altered during this vitrification process. Several heat shock protein identified but not affected during the vitrification, except one, and sperm egg interaction protein is responsible for this are not there. Then we analyze through the electron microscopy. We found that this type 1, 2, 3 considered the normal, and 4, 5, 6 are damaged one. And we analyze this in different groups, and we found that this type 1, 2, and 3 spermatozoa were higher in the 69 in the 0.0 micromole mitocubes in compared to the glycerol. It is 45 less, which is not desirable, means it is damaged spermatozoa. Type 4, type 5, type 6 is higher in the glycerol groups and lower in the 0.02 mitocube. Means in during the vitrification, this glycerol damage the sperm membrane, acrosome membrane, so it finally affect the fertility of the spermatozoa. So in summary, we can conclude that addition of 0.2 micromole mitocube and 1% glycerol in basal vitrification medium improve sperm motility, but use of glycerol for sperm vitrification show more drop in mitochondrial potential, increase oxidative stress, resulting more DNA fragmentation and less ATP production and alteration of the more functional proteins. And the electron microscopy result revealed that even a low concentration of the cryoprotectant, 1%, adversely affect the ultrastructure of the sperm head, but addition of 0.02 micromole mitocube protect the ultrastructure of the sperm. Finally, proteomic analysis revealed that mitocube but not glycerol protect the sperm protein modification responsible for sperm motility, capacitation, acrosome reaction, sperm egg fusion, sperm filtration and early embryonic development during the vitrification process. So, in this experiment, we showed that it is beneficial to vitrify the spermatozoa in compared to the conventional, because in vitrification process even a single sperm can be vitrified. That is not possible in the conventional cryopreservation of the sperm. So those patients are oligozoospermic, that semen can be cryopreserved for the future use or for the another use. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Pradeep, for your excellent talk. And Dr. Mangla Gauri will give her talk later. So it is my pleasure to invite the next speaker, Dr. Priya Shibudasan, for her talk. She is a research scientist at Prashanti Cancer Care Mission. She received her master's degree in biotechnology from Kannur University, Kerala, and obtained her PhD in head and neck oncology from Vasudha Shaw Center for Translational Research, Bangalore. There she worked on salivary transcriptome and proteome for the diagnosis and prognosis of oral cancer. Her work on salivary biomarkers for early diagnosis of oral cancer has got patented, and she has pursued training course in science journalism and postgraduate diploma in IPR at Prashanti Cancer Care Mission. And she is currently involved in conducting research projects focused on cancer, breast cancer, understanding the molecular mechanism, and identifying the biomarkers, collaborating with clinicians and manuscript writing and grants writing. Dr. Priya.
Good afternoon, everyone. So myself, Priya Shivasan, as she introduced. So I'm a research scientist at Center for Translational Cancer Research and Prashanti Cancer Care Mission. So today I'm going to talk about advancements and future directions in biobanking for breast diseases, a case study from the Center for Translational Cancer Research. So let's first see what are the breast diseases in India. Breast diseases are increasingly being diagnosed in India, which demands that there is a need for accelerated research and development to improve patient care and well-being. So basically, breast diseases are classified into two, benign and malignant. Benign includes fibroadenoma, fibrocystic disease, intraductal papilloma and mastitis, and malignant diseases involve invasive ductal carcinoma and invasive lobular carcinoma. So now let's see the importance of breast disease biobank in India. What is the need? It improves research, diagnostics, and treatments for various breast diseases. Then it provides clinical and biological insights tailored to Indian patients. Then it fosters innovation in personalized medicine, biomarker discovery, and epidemiological studies. And it also has a global role, which is strengthen India's role in global breast cancer research and improve patient outcome. So now let's come to the Prashanti Cancer Care Mission's Breast Disease Biobank. So recognizing the need for breast disease biobank in India, Prashanti Cancer Care Mission established in 2018 with a mission to advance breast disease research and care in India. So it is basically a single surgeon clinic and research unit in association with ISER Pune, and its purpose is to become the source of breast disease samples and patient data. And it follows ICMR guidelines for informed consent process and hence is ethical. So now let's see the setup and growth of PCCM over the different timelines. The PCCM Biobank was set up in 2018
by starting the formalin fixed paraffin embedded tissues. And then in 2022, it started with the fresh frozen biopsy biobank. And then in 2024, we started with the fresh frozen surgery biobank. And at 2025, right now, we have around 1,822 patient samples and their data collected and stored. So this is the biobanking process at PCCM. It starts with an informed consent process. When the patient visits the clinic, the doctor informs the patients about the importance of research and donating the samples. So once we get the consent and the patient goes for the diagnosis, imaging procedures and biopsy procedures, we collect imaging data as well as the biopsy tissue samples. And then when the patient goes for the next stage of treatments like chemotherapy or surgery, again, we take the NSCT data. NSCT means neoadjuvant chemotherapy data, or we collect the surgery samples, and also FFP block surgery and biopsy FFP blocks. And then all these things combined together, all the data is collected, curated, analyzed, and managed at PCCM. And it is a rich source of diagnostic and therapeutic data. So basically, PCCM breast disease biobank has two units. One is the fresh frozen tissue biobank, and the second one is the FFP tissue biobank. So this is the workflow which we use in the fresh frozen tissue biobank. When we get the information, when the biobank team gets the information that there is a patient to do biopsy, we label the vials and go there, and we collect the tissue samples in the vials and snap freeze it in liquid nitrogen. And since our organization is a very small organization, it's a single surgeon unit, and we have space constraints, and so we transport the samples later to our permanent location, which is situated inside Pune, and then we store the samples there, and the data is entered. So whenever we collect the tumor samples, we collect the adjacent normal samples also, which is called the brain tumor. So this is the data. This is the outcome of our fresh frozen biobank. So far, we have around 235 total patients in our fresh frozen biobank, with about 182 biopsy patients and 80 surgery patients. So total we have around 346 tumor vials and 295 adjacent normal vials. So along with these samples, we have the different data related to the patients. Like if we look at the type of diseases, what are the type of breast diseases present, we can see that malignant diseases are more when in comparison to the benign. And then when we looked at the breast cancer molecular subtypes, like we have three different subtypes like ERPR or TNBC or HER2, we can see that ERPR is around 54% is the ERPR molecular subtype. And then when it goes to the pathological diagnosis of all these breast diseases, which is the pathology which is most commonly seen, is the adenoma. This is the most prevalent one, and the second is the fibroadenoma. Then, so after this, about the treatment, we also looked at what are the types of treatment undergone by these patients. We see that majority of the patients undergo upfront surgery. Upfront surgery means surgery is the first treatment, and then NACT or NAHT. So upfront surgery is the most common type of treatment undergone by the patients, and among the surgery, which is the most common surgery, is the breast BCT oncoplasty. Oncoplasty. Our surgeon is an oncoplastic surgeon, and that is the most common surgery which is being carried out. And then these patients are also classified based on the response to the NACT. NACT responders or non-responders. These samples are very useful. Will be very useful for using it for studying the personalized medicine approaches. And now it is the formalin fixed paraffin embedded tissue biobank. Same workflow, like we take consent from the patients, and then we collect the FFP blocks from the pathology department, and then we store in specific locations in the cabinet. So we have around 1,678 patient data and samples in our biobank. Similar to the data which I showed for the fresh frozen biobank, we have done the analysis here also. Here also actually we go get the same kind of result. ERPR is the most common group, and malignant condition is more, and invasive ductal carcinoma is the most common pathological type, and surgery is the most common surgery. But the breakup is here shown: fresh frozen 182, fresh frozen fresh frozen biopsy is 182, fresh frozen surgery 80, and common fixed is 1,600. So from our experiences, we can say that PCCM has successfully set up a biobank under the constraints of space and other resources. Then we collected and stored well annotated biopsy and surgical specimens of breast diseases. And actually, the biobank accelerated research at PCCM with a wealth of data and tissue samples. Many researches are ongoing in our institute. Then patient data analysis provided the current nature of the disease, diagnosis, and the treatment methods which are prevalent in our country. So establishment and advancements of PCCM breast disease biobank at different time points contributed to breast cancer research at the national or global level. So now coming to the future directions, we are planning to enhance the data management, implement a comprehensive system for data tracking and analysis, then improve sample accessibility, streamline the process for researchers to request and access the samples, and then sustainability through commercialization. We are also planning about it. So that's about our PCCM biobank. I would like to acknowledge Dr. C.B. Kopikar, who is the pillar of this institute, who is the director, and then Lale Busheri, who is the CEO of PCCM. And these are the different CTCR team, and I'd like to thank the financial support given by the Bajaj as well as by DBT Welcome Trust for the successful operations of the biobanks in our institute. Thank you.
Mention your colleagues and Prashanti. We're going to take questions for everybody in the end due to time constraints, and we'll move on to our next speaker, Dr. Vineet Kumar Pandey. He's an assistant professor at Indian Veterinary Research Institute at Izzatnagar, Uttar Pradesh. He holds a PhD and specializes in veterinary surgery and radiology. Dr. Pandey has contributed to various research projects and publications in his field, and he's going to talk about today about the serum Philippine marker as a diagnostic potential diagnostic indicator using canine mammary tumors. Here, Dr. Pandey.
Thank you, ma'am. But I will correct my introduction. Actually, I am a PhD scholar in Indian Veterinary Research Institute in the division of biochemistry. So I have marked that only, but I don't know why it came like this. So I would like to start my presentation with a small statement. That what if the difference between life and death was just a matter of early detection? Good evening, everyone. I am Dr. Vineet Kumar Pandey, a PhD scholar from Indian Veterinary Research Institute, and today I am going to present my seminar on the topic serum Philippine 1 in canine mammary tumors, a potential diagnostic indicator. So I would like to give a brief background about the canine memory tumor. So this occurs in the as the dogs have 4 pairs of this mammary gland. It occurs mostly in the caudal 2 pairs of the mammary glands. So it occurs around 40% of the total cancer reported in the dogs, and it occurs mainly due to the metabolic disorders and the dysregulation of the uh, estrogen and progesterone. The breeds which are high at risk are the golden retrievers, German Shepherd, boxers, etc. And it occurs mostly in the dogs which are above the age of 6 years. So, a word perilipine came in the topic. So, what is perilipine? It is a surface protein which is found on the lipid droplets. Now, what is lipid droplets? So, these are the intracellular organelles which are present in all the tissues but are specific in the adipose tissues. It contains the lipids, mostly the triacylglycerols, and it covers with the phospholipids. So it arises from the endoplasmic reticulum and it functions as the storage of the excess lipids and also maintains the lipid balance which prevents the lipotoxicity. Now coming to the perilipine. So as I already described, it is a surface protein and it is of 5 types, that is perilipine 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. And the function of this perilipine protein is the lipid droplet protection. How it protects the lipid droplets is by preventing the breakdown of the lipids. It also helps in the regulation of lipolysis by the action of the lipase. So how this action of lipase occurs is that the hormones such as the catecholamines this phosphorylates the protein kinase A, which allows the lipase activation. So for my research, the technical program is like this. We have collected the blood samples from the healthy controls and the memory tumor affected dogs, and then the serum was separated from the blood with at 5,000 rpm for 30 minutes. And then for the primary, the dot blot analysis was performed, and after this, the Western blot analysis was performed for the characterization of the size of the proteins. Now coming to the results. So in this, we can see that the dot blot analysis shows that this from the 30 CMT affected dogs, 3 to 4 affected dogs were showing the positive reactivity with the anti-PLIN1 antibody, and no control groups were showing reactivity with the anti-PLIN1 antibody. So to further characterize the size of the proteins, we have performed the Western blot. So the Western blot transfer efficiency was determined by the Wonsu staining, and further this proteins were further was further reacted with the anti-PLIN1 antibody, and we have seen that this PLIN1 antibody, the samples which showed positive reactivity in the dot blot also showed the bands at the 52 kilodalton size. So coming to the summary, the dot blot analysis was employed for the initial screening of the circulatory canine perilipine 1 in the serum samples of normal and CMT cases. And after the initial screening, the Western blot were performed by the commercial antibody of the canine and circulatory PLIN1. So coming to the conclusion, so this is the first work we have done to show the presence of circulatory PLIN1 in the serum samples of the dogs affected with the mammary tumor.
नहीं नहीं हाँ एक सेकंड बस वो आ जाए उसके बाद आ जाए तो फिर चला जाएगा खत्म हो गई कहानी रुकी तो 2 मिनट बस हाँ 2 मिनट 2 मिनट करवा देगा बस अब कट करिए एक मिनट बोल रहा
on natural products and biotransformations. Dr. Gauri has authored and co-authored multiple peer-reviewed scientific papers and has presented her work at numerous national and international conferences. Her contributions have been recognized by experts worldwide. Her research interests include natural product chemistry, biotransformation, and their applications in medicine and chemistry. She has published extensively on these topics with more than 50 publications and approximately 600 citations. Dr. Gauri is actively associated with different societies and academies, and her academic career is decorated with several reputed awards and funding. Dr. Gauri has research interest in chemical sciences. Dr. Gauri?
We are connecting, ma'am.
Wait or should we move on to the next session? Virendra? Is there any burning? Is there any questions? Vinny, are you around? Yeah, with that, I think we'll close the session and we can take the questions and interactions over tea break. Right, Dr. Yadav? Do we go for tea break? Yes.